Thanks, folks, for tuning in. It's Wednesday, the big day at Davos, and thanks for tuning in to get some insights here. More and more people giving me feedback, and I appreciate that. Don't be afraid to criticize or tell me, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Hopefully trying to get to you every day at day-to-day news, trying to get to you the news that matters, gives you stuff behind the headlines, saves you a lot of time if you want to be doom scrolling other stuff than the news. So Davos today, World Economic Forum, as you know, continuing, and Donald Trump will be the keynote speaker today. Last night around 1 a.m., as is often his habit, he was doing a little doom scrolling himself and putting out messages on his Truth Social, and this time including Canada and Greenland in terms of potential targets in his concerns about having the North protected. So we're going to see where that's going to go. Kind of an interesting one. It's kind of fascinating to see, and actually maybe encouraging, EU countries all lining up and aggressively. They're talking about all kinds of them are going to be sending troops, sending soldiers to Greenland. Are they expecting a U.S. invasion? I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, interesting that when Putin first attacked Ukraine, the EU did not gather together in such solidarity. Of course, they had some concerns and they said some things, but they didn't all start sending soldiers to Ukraine to help. But now they're sending soldiers to Greenland to protest the U.S. Anyway, let's see how that works out. Yesterday, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, was a keynote. He got himself a standing ovation and talked about the U.S.-led international world order is now over. And he himself seems to be ushering in a new world order. I'll let you talk about that and worry about that. And interesting too, and he talks about independence and strength and standing up and speaking about the things that are right and properly criticizing where criticism is due, and he's aiming all his criticism, of course, at the U.S. In the same breath, he talks about a new relationship Canada is striking with China, especially on sharing strategic information. China, of course, the largest violator of human rights in the world, and being involved in so many other nations in very aggressive ways. And talking about Canada drawing closer. So I'm looking forward with the newfound strength that the Prime Minister is talking about, and I congratulate him on that. Nothing wrong with showing strength. That now I'm sure it will just be a matter of hours, if not days, when we will hear him becoming the first Liberal Prime Minister in Canadian history to say something critical about China. We've always criticized the U.S. Liberal Prime Ministers have never, I repeat, never criticized China. So let's see if his newfound strength also applies to communists as well as to capitalists. Well, the markets are still jumping around a lot with these. As a matter of fact, they're not jumping around, they're continuing to go down with the concern about this confrontation with the EU and other countries kind of lining up against the US over Greenland. With that, as the TSX drops and the Standard & Poor's 500 has gone down again, as have the U.S. markets, but gold continues to go up 3.7% now, and silver 6.9%. So these are risky markets. I'm not telling people how or where to invest, but anytime there is uncertainty in the marketplace, especially internationally, isn't it amazing how that gold standard, if I can use that word, gold going back for thousands of years, does not lose its glitter, and it's rocketing upwards, or let's just say moving upwards. The other thing that's moving up in Canada is its inflation rate. That's a bit of a concern. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today, but just to let you know and remind you that inflation, which basically means you lose your purchasing power. What you could purchase with $1 yesterday, you can no longer purchase today. Groceries you could buy for $10 are going to maybe cost you $15. And inflation has a number of causes. The principal cause all through history of inflation is government spending on borrowed money. So when governments are in debt and they continue to increase spending, that is the single greatest reason you are losing your buying power. You are losing the power of your pension plan to be able to sustain you in later years. Just keep that in mind. And this is not a partisan statement. Anytime you hear a liberal politician, a conservative politician, a rabid socialist, or a hardline capitalist government, anytime you hear if they are announcing new spending to get your votes, and of course if they're in debt, then they're doing it with borrowed money, always means you lose. You are going to lose. So please keep that in mind. Japan is a real focus, and I've been talking about this. Not much else in mainstream media outside Japan, so watch for mainstream media to finally wake up and take a look at the fact that there's going to be an election February 8th in Japan. Shinai Takachi, who is an amazing prime minister, and she's a woman, and she's small c conservative on a bunch of issues. And as I've said before, if you are a woman in politics and you are bold enough to be small c conservative in your world outlook, you are never going to have a good day in the media. Even female women in the media, they're just going to trash you and thrash you. So you know what? Just do what's right. You're gonna be thrashed for it anyway. So she's talking about, the world has gone crazy and Japan has gone crazy, saying, oh my goodness, she's going to lower taxes. Well, thank goodness we've got a world leader bold enough to lower taxes. Remember, most economists hate the fact that taxes are being lowered. And the reason they hate that is because it gives a sense that people, individuals, citizens, will be getting a little more control over their own destiny. Anytime you have governments that are raising taxes, that means they're controlling people more. So instinctively, people who've been trained, and this includes economists, in a culturally Marxist view, and that is that a few elites should really run the country, if not the world, they hate, even economists hate the thought of taxes being lowered, because eventually that leads to more independence for you. Now, here's how it works and why they criticize. If a government makes an announcement they're going to lower a tax, let's take the situation here in Japan. The prime minister there, she has announced she's going to go from 8%, this is on food, an 8% consumption tax is going to go to zero, and she's not even going to make it permanent for 2 years. And Japan economists and world economists have gone completely berserk on her. Because when you lower a tax, yes, you are at the start, on day one, you are limiting the amount of money coming in from a particular source. But as the out years show, if you continue to maintain fiscal integrity and keep the taxes down or even keep lowering, you attract investment, you attract people, and people work harder because now they're not going to be pushed into a higher tax bracket just for working hard. And so the outgoing years, you will see an increase into the government coffers when you lower taxes, because the increase comes from increased investment and increased output from individuals. That certainly was the case when I was Minister of Finance in Alberta, and we brought in a flat tax. First year, there was a reduction in terms of taxes coming in, but in the out years for the following several years, the economy was definitely stimulated by people coming in and investing. So watch for that on February 8th. I will say also, though, it's concerning, the government of Japan is increasing their spending about 6%, and they already have a GDP to debt ratio. That means a very high debt ratio of 260%. It's the highest, certainly, in the main financial world. So keep an eye. That's a bit of a concern there. Well, Supreme Court of the United States dealing with, as it now had the presentations on the issue of transgender athletes, especially those biologically born men who are competing against women and girls, or also going into women's spaces. And as you know, President Trump and the U.S. has putting a ban on that, thinking that girls and women should not have to face off against biologically born men who've had some kind of changes made. And the Supreme Court, in terms of the justices, they went through a 3-hour session on people, hearing from people on both sides, seemed to be the majority of them raising questions and about how fair this is, or is it fair at all for girls to have to compete against biologically born men. So I don't know if that's going to be an indicator of where the court will go on this, because at least 3 of the justices, remember there's 9 altogether, at least 3 of them are arch leftist, and they cannot intellectually deal with any issue that is small c conservative. They are completely intellectually incapable because they're so culturally Marxist. So for sure they're going to vote in favor of those who want biological men to be able to compete against women, and they want biological men to be able to go into women's spaces. Let's see what's going to happen. There's a number, it's interesting to know, the UK, not exactly a small country, has effectively banned transgenders involved in competing against girls and women. a number of the World Athletic Associations, the World Athletic Association, the World Swim Association, the World Biking Association, the World Rugby Association, hey, even the World Cricket Association, who knew there was women's cricket, has effectively banned biologically born men from competing against women. Let's see where that goes. Do you want a fun story? There's an interesting dilemma has broken out in the city of St. Louis in the United States, where a whole lot of monkeys have escaped from or burst free from the monkey zoo, wherever that is. They're running around the city, and so the city planners have immediately announced to everybody to calm the citizens down. We're going to catch all the monkeys because we're going to use AI we're going to put to use to ask the question, where would monkeys run to in our city? And we'll go and catch them. And now it appears the monkeys are somehow anticipating and outthinking the AI apps on monkey finding. And people are, the authorities are rushing to the place where the AI says they should go. And guess what? The monkeys saw it coming and they're gone already. So kind of a fun story that's been unfolding there. Another interesting story on the faith front. So in Oklahoma City, there was this just happened. There was the annual Roofers Convention, and of course it is called RoofCon. And so what can you say? It's a roofers convention, and they talk all about different roofings and how you install and how you supply and all that kind of thing. So it seems that a revival broke out. Some mainstream media are reporting it, some are not, but apparently near the end of the convention, near the end of the day, one of the speakers was up there talking about whatever roofers talk about, shingles, and I don't mean the disease, and structures and joists and everything else. In the middle of his speech says he just felt very strongly, and of course there were hundreds of people there, very strongly that there was quite a number of people there who needed to acknowledge Jesus Christ and invite Jesus Christ into their lives. And he asked anybody who was thinking that to stand up. About 200 men stood up. And all of a sudden, and it was advertised as a roofers convention. This was not being advertised as a spiritual gathering. 200 men made their way to the front of that convention center, and people were up there ready to pray with them. And they even found some kind of a trough, a makeshift trough, made it into a baptismal tank, and the reports are that dozens of them were being baptized. So there you go, folks. I think there's something in the Bible that says about shouting it from the rooftops. So there you go. Have a good show today. Thanks for tuning in, and let's see tomorrow what involves us around the world. Thanks so much. Bye now.